Hello again, my name is Kadarius Collins and I am a student at JTech, and today I will be demonstrating how to pull a code and troubleshoot that code on this 2005 Freightliner Columbia. Okay, and to pull our code today, we'll be using an OTC handheld code reader. This truck in particular has a 6-pin 1587 system. And the code that I pulled up today is 128.1083, which is a barometric pressure voltage above normal or shorted high. So in order to do that, we're going to go and pull up our troubleshooting steps and go through our troubleshooting and figure out what the problem is. Okay. So first step, what are we going to do is we're using Truck Pro Demand to bring up our service manuals. So the first thing we did was we went in and we pulled up the codes. We found out what our troubleshooting codes were. Right? So we know it's a 108.3 code, which is atmospheric pressure sensor, open circuit. Atmospheric pressure, signal voltage is beyond acceptable range. So what we then did was we came to our next step, and it's verify that the diagnostic code is still active. And if you look here, it is still an active fault. So our first step tells us to make sure that the code is active, which it is. And our second step is to inspect the wiring connectors, the electrical connectors and wiring, perform a complete inspection, and perform a 10-pound pull test. So the pull test is basically you're going through and pulling around, making sure that nothing has come apart, inadvertently from, stepping inside the engine to do any type of work or maintenance or anything like that. You're not really wanting to pull on it real hard. You're just seeing if any wires or any connectors came apart, or if any wires were cut, from stepping inside of the engine. All right, so we completed our pull test and we noticed that there was nothing pulled apart. There was no cut of frayed wires or anything like that. So now what we're going to do is move down and we're going to measure sensor supply voltage using the voltmeter. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch the ignition off and the engine off, disconnect the sensor from the engine harness, and connect our multimeter to test for our reference voltage. And reference voltage should be anywhere between 4.5 to 5.5 volts. Alright, so now we have our test leads from our multimeter. It's hooked up across A and B and our connector going to the ECM. Remember I said that our reference voltage should be anywhere from 4.5 to 5.5 volts. And if we read our multimeter, we have 5 volts reference going across A and B. So since that's what we have, we know, since we have the right reference voltage, we know that our sensor supply voltage is correct. So since we know that our sensor supply voltage is correct, what we're going to do now is go to our next step. And our next step would be to essentially short the sensor from terminal C to terminal B. And after we short the sensor, we're going to look for a change in our code. And that change would be from a 108.3 code to a 108.4 code, indicating that the code went from a short to an open. So as you can see here, we have our sensor shorted from terminal C to terminal B. And if we then go look at our scanner, we had a change in code, as I said, from a 108.3 code to a 108.4 code, indicating that now, since we know that the code changed after we jumped the sensor, We know that the issue is not from the harness or from the ECM, so that would tell us that we need to replace the sensor. And in order for us to do that, so we will replace the sensor. We will get a test sensor, and then we will go through our troubleshooting steps again to ensure that that's what the issue actually is. And after we go through our troubleshooting steps a second time, if that's what the issue actually is, then we'll replace the test sensor with a new sensor, and then we will start the truck up, run the truck, and clear the code and make sure that it does not come back. This has been my brief overview of troubleshooting. My name is Kadarius Collins. Thank you.